Hi, this is pre-recorded Derek. Thanks for coming to my pre-scheduled presentation where the real me will be in attendance. You may be wondering what pre-recorded Derek is doing here today. Well, I'm here to show you how to say yes to resilience. Now say it with me. Yes to resilience. Did you do it? Well, we most likely didn't hear you because you're muted, and we probably can't see you because your camera is off. But I believe you did it. I trust you guys. Now, you may be wondering what the heck that even means. Well, YES is an acronym for Youth Environmental Summit. The Youth Environmental Summit is an annual youth event where children from the Copper River region come together for multiple days to participate in activities that will give them the foundation to become better stewards of their environment. The native village of Gakona, with the financial support of the Environmental Protection Agency, is the creator and current facilitator of the Youth Environmental Summit. The native village of Gakona is the lead coordinator of the event and oversees all aspects of camp implementation and operation. A successful youth event requires master planning and an effective team management by our environmental coordinator and assistant. This sounds great, right? It is. The Youth Environmental Summit was going on for 12 years straight, providing environmental education to children who are adults today. I think that's pretty wild. It went on annually up until 2020 when the pandemic halted plans for everyone worldwide. It was a bummer, but of course safety first. So the 13th Annual Youth Environmental Summit was unluckily canceled. The following spring we decided to delay YES to late summer, around August, for the first time. YES is usually held in May. Guess what happened in August? You guessed it, canceled due to the pandemic. So, what the heck should we do? Just wait until the pandemic is over? Give up? Nope, that's not what environmental superheroes do. We put on our super suits and get busy. Whoops, wrong suit. I think my environmental superhero suit is in the wash. Anyway, environmental superheroes are resilient. If we can't be there in person, we will be there virtually. Or at least a pre-recorded version of ourselves will be there. And we'll educate and have fun. That being said, I'm here to show you how to say yes to resilience. Even though the Youth Environmental Summit was delayed, canceled, and then finally turned into a virtual event, we stayed resilient and we are going to have yes no matter what. So how do you go about putting on a virtual event? I'm extremely new to this as well, so let's do some learning together. First of all, give yourself enough time to start planning. Depending on its size, I would recommend scheduling your first planning meeting 5 to 6 months before the event. YES is a large event that has many parts and moving pieces. It requires tremendous support from many dedicated individuals. This is especially true when it comes to organizing your first virtual event. You also need a team leader. The native village of Gakona's environmental coordinator is the main point of contact for many helpers involved. Helpers and volunteers are very essential. Therefore, it is very important that the team leader create a rewarding opportunity for everyone. Most events, virtual or in-person, will require some costs. The cost to facilitate an in-person youth environmental summit has ranged from $2,000 to $5,000, excluding the human resource costs. YES is an eligible activity under EPA IGAP and a major commitment for the native village of Gakona each year. Thus, our IGAP staff lead the coordination and some supply funds are dedicated to the effort. The Finance Committee, always led by Native Village of Gakona, submits requests to regional IGAP programs and others for sponsorship of the event. Funds are paid to the Native Village of Gakona, who accounts them into a specific Youth Environmental Summit QuickBooks category, explicitly for the summit use. A budget is usually established during the planning portion of the event. This requires research, as well as using past year's budgets as a guide. When it comes to creating your first virtual event, you should do some extra research. In some years, additional expenses are incurred, such as purchasing t-shirts for youth volunteers, or for button name tags, or for a pandemic that caused you to do a virtual event instead of an in-person event. Any special purchases must fit within the funds available or be recruited as a donation from a sponsor. Planning a virtual event has so far been cheaper than planning an in-person event, but it also requires much more planning. A virtual event may also get more expensive if you use a paid virtual event platform. Pricing can vary wildly for virtual event platforms, so have a good idea of what your budget is when you build your short list of options. Some virtual events tools only cost a few dollars per attendee, while some others can set you back in thousands per event. It all depends on your needs, how high profile the event is, and what kind of on-demand support you want from your technology partner. For the Virtual Youth Environmental Summit, we are still deciding what platform to use. The easiest virtual event software and the one we will most likely use will be Zoom Events. This is because everyone is familiar with Zoom and there are sponsors and supporters who have Zoom accounts. If no one could lend you a Zoom account, then you will have to add the subscription into your budget. It is not required that all sponsorship funds brought in a specific year be used that year. Any funds left over are held by the native village of Gakona for the following year's summit. I mentioned earlier that there is a finance committee. Committees are an effective way of getting the work done leading up to and at the event. The three committees, logistics, finance, and operations, are standard for an in-person event. A native village of Gakona representative usually serves as chair for each committee. You can use these same three committees to accomplish a virtual event. The logistics committee is responsible for recruiting partners, coordination of transportation, supplies, food, and public relation efforts. Transportation of students from spread out communities requires time and coordination. It works best to have a committed driver with a van in each community that coordinates directly with families. But why would you need transportation for a virtual event? Because you could still have small virtual event parties in your area. Here in the Copper River Valley, we have communities spread out at least 10 to 20 miles apart from each other. Each small community can still transport youth to the community hall and have a small virtual event party depending on COVID safety measures. Alright, back to logistics committee. Supplies include general resources needed every year, like for an in-person event you need water jugs, hand washing stations, etc. And for a virtual event, you will need a virtual event platform subscription. Virtual events could always have mailed supplies as well to provide hands-on learning experience for the participants. Always look for supplies already on hand. Publicity includes developing flyers, advertisements, and providing recruitment representations at schools and other appropriate venues. For an in-person event, the Operations Committee is responsible for developing and implementing plans to handle registration, on-site management of partners, and incident command for the actual event. While some pre-planning is necessary, the bulk of the work for an in-person event occurs at the summit. For a virtual event, early registration is key, and most operations happen on the virtual event platform, which makes things much more convenient. There are easy-to-use platforms that allow you to have all-in-one event management systems, registration, webinar/meeting services, and much more. There are free options out there, but they are not as easy to use and may take more of a learning curve. You may also have to use multiple services, such as a platform for registration, a platform for webinars/meetings, and a separate platform for therapy, because you may need it after organizing a virtual event. Just kidding. As mentioned earlier, there is also a finance committee, which is responsible for the review of waivers and registration forms, recruitment of financial sponsorship and in-kind donations, developing the budget, and securing special event insurance. In the case for a virtual event, in lieu of the insurance, you will most likely need to help purchase the virtual event platform. The waivers and registration forms are an important part of reducing liability and ensuring that students come prepared for the day's activities. Typically, the prior year's forms are reviewed for any necessary updates, including special items students should bring with them. In addition to the committees who support the planning and the facilitation of the event, we have many other volunteers who play a variety of roles. It is critical to have an adequate amount of volunteers to support our primary planning partners. Help is always appreciated and needed. A key component of creating a worthwhile event for children is to remember a common rule. You must have high structure and low expectation. In other words, do not expect the children to want to sit through a long educational session. They will most likely be at the YES Summit because they want to have fun or because their parents made them go. The most successful sessions are those that are hands-on, interactive, and enjoyable. This may be hard for a virtual event, but there are ways to keep kids interested. For the structure of our virtual event taking place in December, we decided on 3 days. We decided on one live session to open the summit. Then throughout the 3-day event, we will release pre-recorded videos. Each video will have a topic to teach and a challenge for the kids to complete. A great example would be the indoor fire safety video we plan to create. It will educate the kids on great indoor fire safety, and the challenge will require the kids to check the smoke detector and change the batteries if needed. We plan on having at least one pre-recorded video released each day, but more if we can manage it. The kids must complete a minimum of one challenge per day. On the last day of the virtual event, we will release a pre-recorded video to end it. In the end video, we will let the kids know that they have a week to complete challenges for a prize. Our prizes will be given to any youth participating, but we'll always try and encourage them to watch all of our videos. We decided to go with this structure so that we can do the bulk of the work beforehand. Our virtual event takes place right before Christmas, and I'm sure the other organizers and helpers will have other plans for the holidays. Pre-recorded videos and releasing them on a schedule allows for an easy week during the online event. Most of the work comes weeks before the virtual event. I know this was a lot of information, and I most likely read it like a robot. I hope this information is valuable to you and practical as well. There should be an in-person version of Derek here, most likely wearing the same outfit and looking cold and tired. If you have any questions, you can direct them to the real Derek. As for me, the pre-recorded Derek, I will be out of here. Until next time, thank you. In some years, additional expenses are incurred, such as purchasing t-shirts. A native village of Gakona representative usually serves on the chair for each committee. Dude, get it right. For an in-person event, the operation committee is responsible for developing and implementing. A key component of creating a blue